Good morning and welcome to the Talk Football Podcast. This is season 5, episode 4. We've had a little bit of a break and we're back. Hopefully we get some more episodes coming your way soon. And this morning I am joined all the way, and it is early morning. I am joined, but not for me, but it's evening for him, all the way from New Zealand. Welcome back to the pod. It's been a while. Good morning, Paul.
Oh, good morning for you. Good evening for me.
Yeah, it's not a brilliant morning. We have obviously Storm Dara that's been battering the UK and it's still raging outside, heavy rain and winds. And I understand that the weather's particularly bad there as well.
Just as bad here. England just managed to win the test before it started to rain. And
do you know what? I've not kept touch with that. I've not kept touch with it at all. And I know we won the first test and whatnot, but yeah, no, I've missed out on it completely.
They won the second. So the second test had just finished. They won it in 2.5 days. I've done in Wellington, so like not too far from me.
Not so far from you.
Yeah.
But today we're here to talk about the biggest game of the season, and obviously, yep. So it is Super Sunday, and it is Spurs versus Chelsea.
I thought you were going to talk about Arsenal Fulham.
Well, I mean, there's been some interesting results over the weekend, actually. I mean, we could talk about the Ruben Amorim effect not quite kicking in at United, but we're not going to. I'm going to try and tempt my mate on later on if he answers his phone to talk about that. But yeah, we're going to talk about the game today. We're in a good position. Tottenham not so much, and it hasn't really been going well this last few months or so. Things are turning a bit sour for Ange, and so we'll start with Ange first, and we'll get your views on that, because obviously during the week, he lost to Bournemouth. He goes over to the away fans, takes a bit of stick, gets into some altercation with that. And we've seen him do it before, actually, approaching the fans, and the interaction is not going so well. So where do you sit with Ange?
Where do I? Well, I thought it was quite funny with the interaction that there was one guy who just relentlessly kept going, Posta no clue.
Oh yeah, Posta no clue, and then Posta not got a clue is one that's been buzzing around social media and all that. And I mean, from an outside perspective, I see the way he wants to play. And we'll go through the injuries in a minute, because you've got a substantial amount of injuries, ridiculous amount of injuries, and I can sympathise with that, because we had similar kind of issues last season at Chelsea. We're going through that kind of thing, major players out. But obviously having main players out and key players out, that does affect how you want to play and a system of how you want to play. If you haven't got the tools to do the job, then surely you've got to try and adapt to another way of getting the job done.
I don't think he's got the tools when everybody's fit. So he doesn't have, so he has an even worse hand to play when there's injuries. So I don't think it's just a matter of blaming the injuries. Yeah. I think there's a need from his side to be a lot more pragmatic, and pragmatic doesn't mean parking the bus. It just means a few tweaks here and there. And at times he has done that, to be fair to him. But he needs to look at the hand that he's dealt. So at the moment, with the injuries, and say, okay, now what can I do? We can't play exactly the same way. We're going to have to tweak things a little bit and show a level of flexibility with that. Because, the problem, I think he could do a good job if he was given the tools. But then I think most of the managers that Levy has employed for the past 25 years could have done a good job if they were given the tools. The problem for the Tottenham manager is they're never going to be given the tools. So you have to have a level of pragmatism. It's not like what he's experienced before, and the competitiveness of the Premier League is kind of boring and as repetitive as it might be. It's true, you need to be that a little bit more pragmatic. We need to start learning how you can defend corners, as an example. You can't just go, it don't matter, because it does, because you'll lose like you did to Bournemouth. So yeah, where do I stand with him? While he's in the cups, while we're in all of the cups, he kind of has my support, I guess. My hope is that we can somehow fluke a League Cup, and then that might be some kind of start to a dynasty. You know, like the way Mourinho used to always go, "Let's win the League Cup," and
even Pep
learn to win, and you go from
Pep
there.
has prioritised a trophy, any trophy, kind of as that sort of that launch pad.
Yeah, and that's it. And so from that side, he still has my support, but I've got major doubts, a little bit in him, but also in the fact that no manager's ever going to get all of the tools. If you look at, we got rid of guys like Dyer and Højbjerg, and you can argue about their quality, but Højbjerg actually won Spurs a lot of points last season by coming on for the last 15 or 20 minutes, calming things down, organising things and managing it. And now we've got no one. We replaced them with like Archie Gray, who I'm pretty sure is going to be one hell of a baller, but he's 18 years old and he's a midfielder and we're playing him at left back or right back.
He's kind of played everywhere at the moment, other than his position.
And then he's played centre half as well, but he's not playing where he should be playing. And then the big worry in the summer from a recruitment perspective was they got Bergvall in, and it's like, okay, like if he's a youngster and he's he's going to be great in a few years, fine, you get him in. Then you spend 40 million on Archie Gray, and I think he will be a really, really good player. So okay, you've done that. But that was enough kids. After that, then we really needed to, particularly up front and on the on the
players
wings,
who are going to be ready to go.
We really need someone who is ready to go. And then they renewed Werner's loan for a season, which was always a sign of ambition. Like if he was going to stay, then that showed the complete lack of ambition really in the club. And then they signed another kid from Burnley, Odegaard, who's ironically enough is the most experienced of the three of them, but he's got a major long-term injury. But he's still a kid, and he might end up being the best player of the three of them. But once you've signed two kids already, we needed a right now winger, it's boring. But Eze would have been the perfect one because he could have played infield and he could have played either wing. What is he, 25 is he, I think? So he's perfect.
He might even be a bit younger than that.
Yeah.
So he's still
yes, he's going to cost you a few bob. You've got to pay the money for him. But he's got years and you've still got a sell-on value, which of course is, Levy's
I mean this harks back to the likes of, before Grealish left for 100 million and went to City. There was opportunities where you could have had him for like 25, 30 million and Levy wouldn't stump up the cash. And at the time, obviously, Jack would have been a relatively young player, probably early 20s, and would have potentially have taken the team to another level.
I mean, Grealish is the perfect example. I think there was 5 million. Spurs were prepared to pay 20. They wanted 25 for him, and Poch really, really, really wanted him, and they just wouldn't pay the money. Yeah, and there's so many. You look at even you look at the summer when in 2019 after the Champions League final, and Spurs wanted Fernandes, but Bruno Fernandes wouldn't pay the money for him and bought Lo Celso because they could do some special deal where they loaned him for 6 months, which then meant that Real Betis didn't have to pay PSG as much money because we gave him like a 20 million loan fee and then we paid him 30 million after that. So PSG's percentage cut was less, as opposed to just spending the 60 million or whatever
money
meant
getting
to
it
be
done.
on Fernandes. So nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. They lucked out with Poch, and Poch did a great job, and then they even stopped supporting him because of the stadium. And until the only hope we really have, I think, from the Spurs perspective, is that there's been talk of trying to get some minority stakeholding, and
bit of extra investment.
And if that
a bit like
money
what United have done with Jim Ratcliffe.
Pretty much, and then if that money comes in, then of course Levy and ENIC have obviously cashed out some cash, and then they might feel like spending that money that comes in is actually not spending their money, which is the problem. They view that every penny that the club generates is their money as opposed to being the club's money.
This is it.
So that's our only hope, I think, from a strategic perspective.
So moving on to where we are with the squad today, going into this game, and obviously we've got a few questions from Adam, which is it's all based around today's game. So we'll kick off with his first one, which is obviously looking at the injuries, because we're talking about squad depth there and coping with that, and obviously the injuries, long terms. You've got like Bentancur, Davis, obviously had the hamstring the other night, I think it was. Richarlison, Vicario, the list goes on. I do believe Romeo is back in training and potentially could be rushed back for this one today. I don't know if you've seen any extra news. I mean, that was like kind of in the reports last night.
Whether or not it came from Ange's press conference. I think he has to play because otherwise you're playing Archie Gray at centre half, and like it's just not fair on him. So you have to. Romero's got no choice. He has to come back and play.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, like I say, we got them long-term injuries, and the squad doesn't run deep enough really for that. And if we're looking at obviously potential predicted back four, I mean, like you say, you've mentioned Gray, so you'd be looking at Doggy left back.
So you'll have Forster in goal.
Which is checking. I mean,
he's been pretty good.
I mean, I've not really seen so many games. I did watch the 4-0 thumping of City, and rather than that be, an idea of where your progression or where your season would be going, I think that game in isolation, you caught City in a moment where they're not. I mean, even yesterday, they weren't great. They drew 2-2 with Palace, and you caught them in a moment that really, a real weak moment. So it's difficult.
Lloris was in goal for that one as well. So I reckon you'll be Forster, and then you'll go Porro right back, Udogie left back, centre half will be Dragusin and hopefully Romero.
You then go that'll break. Then
midfield will have to be Basuma and Sarr, and then this is a bit then when I think it gets interesting. I'd play Maddison in midfield. I put Kulusevski on the right, like they did against City. Son on the left, and then Solanke up front, and then you've got Werner and Johnson to come on.
Will Solanke be fit for today?
Well, it's going to have to be because there's no one else, so it'll have to be. It's either we play Son up top, which doesn't work, and then we've got Will Lancashire as a kid from the under 21s who will be on the bench and probably will get on at some point. So that's probably the team. And
I mean, is there a world? I mean, obviously, given what the game is today, and then obviously the defeat, is there? I mean, again, this leads into another question from Adam, which is managerial pressure. Do you think? And his question is: do you think Ange will last the festive period and into the new year? If results don't go, particularly today, I think in terms of a mass shift in fan perspective, today could be vital for that.
I think today might be more about, or tomorrow for me might be more about performance, because I don't think anyone's expecting to beat Chelsea, but it's like
I mean a lot of people are obviously, but we're on a really good run. Our form this season obviously has been really, really good. People mocked us with what we did, buying all these players. I'm not too sure they're mocking now. I mean, obviously a lot of people are expecting. I think people have got a bit carried away, specifically from our side of things, thinking that we're actually, we're going to give you a good thumping today. And we have been scoring a lot of goals. We are the top scorers in the Premier League. But I always err on that side of caution, and with this fixture, I don't want to get ahead of myself too much.
I do think this could be potentially be the beginning of the end. Now I can see a scenario where we lose today, we then play, we then got the quarterfinal of the League Cup against United just before Christmas. If we go out of that, then that's one trophy kind of gone, scrubbed off. We're also, our qualification for the Europa League is, we'll get into the playoff, but in reality, we really should be in the top 8. So if there's a scenario where we're still sitting around 10th in the league come the new year. We're out of the League Cup. We've got to go through a qualifying round in the Europa League. I can see that kind of beginning of Jan being pretty nasty, to be honest.
Yeah, you've got a game midweek against Rangers, haven't you?
Yeah, we got Rangers, and then we got 2 relatively easy games, which we should. You'd like to think we'd do it. Sorry, it's later, but
earlier you'll set me off. You ordered,
but yeah, the way we're playing, there's no guarantees. So it's quite possible we could be out the League Cup and then hanging by a thread in Europe. And then I think quite serious questions would have to be asked. And of course, that's January, so then that would be transfer window. And then from a club's perspective, I think there it would either have to be we either back him, as in we really give him some reinforcements in the transfer window, or we get rid of him.
Cut your losses. Yeah, I mean, obviously, in terms of a board perspective, given the fact that if you do bring someone in and you were potentially to reinforce the squad, you've got to make that decision really before January. So, and obviously, the Premier League Christmas fixtures are always, they're tightly packed. There is too many games around this sort of time of the year. So yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at what your upcoming fixtures are. I looked at ours, and we've got some. I mean, you would say very, very winnable fixtures, but looking at yours, yeah.
It's more just there's no gaps. So there's not the gaps to get the players back. So you guys will end up doing this kind of win loss. Yeah. But personally, I'd give him the full season just to see how things go. I think we all expected.
So I've just looked at your fixtures after the Rangers game, looking at your next 4 fixtures. Well, the next 5 Premier League fixtures. That's a tough run. Run. Yeah. So obviously, after the game against Rangers, you're which is a strange one, 15th of December on a Sunday. So you're playing at 7:00 on the Sunday evening away to Southampton. I expect you win that, even if you're not playing great, even with the injuries, because the way with your forward line and what Southampton do with their suicide football at the back, I do expect you win that. But then you're home to United, which they'll be looking to bounce back from some poor results with a new manager, etc. Home then to Liverpool, and then away to Forest, and they're flying. I mean, they're up to like 5th in the league. Ironically, under one of your ex-managers.
Yeah, they got a good manager, Forest.
He's doing all right. And then a home fixture against Wolves to finish out December.
Who have got a bit of a bogey sign over us. We can't seem to beat them.
Yeah, and their forward line is with Wolves are flying. Cunha, he's on fire at the moment. But yeah, they're going for a bad spell. They're desperate in need of points, and what you probably really don't want to be facing is a team desperate to get out of that relegation zone if you're a bit vulnerable at the back. But yeah, that's a tough run. That's a real tough run.
But then the flip side to what I said before is if they beat United, then January sees 2-legged League Cup semi-final. They've got Tamworth in the third round of the FA Cup, so you're thinking that you're through there.
That should.
And then if you're through in Europe, then you're getting into mid-Jan and you're involved in all 3 cup competitions, and maybe that'll help the league form. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. I think, as I say, I think we just need to win a trophy. I don't care about finishing 4th. Right.
Well, I mean, there's this whole thing with Ange that he says he always wins something in his second season. So, let's see if he can live up to that reputation.
Hope so. I suspect, though, the second season elsewhere will be more like the third season in the Premier League, to be honest, because of the competition. And because we signed all these young kids. So these young kids are going to need a year to settle in. Archie Gray, as an example, he's not playing in his preferred position. So you're not getting the best out of him, and you're not seeing everything he's got. You won't see that until next year. And Alderbear, the kid they signed from Burnley, is injured. So this year's a write-off. This season's a write-off for him. So, it's probably more likely to be the third year at Spurs, if he makes it, is more likely to be similar to the second year that he's had everywhere else. But
yeah, looking at that,
progress.
Yeah, looking at that Europa League table as well. Ironically, you and Rangers are on the same points, and they occupy. Only on goal difference, obviously, and it is quite tight between those. Probably from like 13th through to the midway point in that top 10 of the league. I don't know how you feel, but I quite like this. The way they've structured. They've done obviously the same with the Champions League as well. I quite like the way they've structured the competition this way.
It's a bit more interesting, isn't it? Because you're not playing the same team home and away, so you're playing more teams, and it's a one-off, which makes it feel a little bit more like it's a one-off game.
And I think it's more competitive as well, because obviously, generally, when you have the old-fashioned group stage, you'd have two very relatively weak teams from poor divisions, and then you'd arguably have the two teams that were supposed to be getting out of those groups do that. And I think we've seen it in the Champions League as well, with clubs really struggling to cling on to that cutaway point of not having it, because obviously if you finish in that top 8, you avoid going into the extra game of going in a playoff, etc. Which obviously with fixture pile-ups and whatnot, you really want to avoid that anyway. But yeah, I think I like the format. I think it really puts pressure on to get results.
I like it so far. It'll be interesting to see post the playoff game if there are any shocks, if the playoff situation makes it interesting, or if you're still seeing the same faces, same teams qualifying. Yeah. But yeah, so far it's certainly made it. It's different, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. Right. So we'll do a little bit about my club, and obviously injury-wise. Reece James, obviously, long term is out. And then other than that, we've got Fafana, who's done a hamstring. And then we haven't really got any other major injury worries. Where are we? Yeah, Mudryk is going to miss the game today through illness. Other than that, it is literally just Reece James and Fafana. I think the interesting one with us, looking at today's game and how we might line up against you, because Enzo's obviously been in fantastic form in the last couple of games, where we've rested Lavia, because obviously Lavia, he's back from injury this season. He's been playing fantastic for us, but we've had to manage his minutes a little. Mm-hmm. And the interesting one will be what he does with the midfield today for us against you, because obviously in the last Premier League fixture against Villa, not Southampton, because he made 7 changes and rested a load of players against Southampton, which is to have the opportunity to be able to do that is phenomenal. So in the game against Villa, he started with Caicedo as a right back, being the one that inverts into midfield to make the extra and make the 3. And then he started obviously Enzo and Lavia. Enzo and Lavia in that game as 2, and with then Caicedo making that, which obviously meant that Malo Gusto dropped to the bench. So it'd be interesting to see if he does that again today for Spurs, or whether he goes with a conventional, possibly maybe just for the energy to match up against your midfield, where he just goes with Lavia and Caicedo, drops Enzo to the bench and brings Malo Gusto back in at the right back position. The rest of the team relatively picks itself. I do believe, despite his goal against Southampton, I do believe Neto will come in on the right. Palmer will go in the 10. I think that's how we'll go. And I'd imagine, obviously, Jackson. I don't know who will go on the left. Possibly Sancho. He might start Sancho on the left. So it'd be interesting.
So did Chelsea just invert on the right side?
Generally, but we can do it either side, because obviously Cucurella's, who's been in fantastic form for the last 18 months, really, it's been one of our crucial players. So we can do it either side. So, and Cucurella does it just as comfortably, if not better. But obviously Malo Gusto has been, getting better at doing that and getting into those positions, but still being able with the ability to retain his defensive shape when he needs to. Obviously Cucurella's more used to doing that. He did it with Spain in the Euros, and obviously for us as well. So Yeah, it'd be interesting. We obviously not having Fofana in the team. Levi and Wes have had a great partnership at centre defence. So it'd be interesting to see who he brings in. Disasi played relatively well against Southampton, so potentially he could come in and partner Levi at the back. But he could bring in Tosin, he could bring in Badiashile, either one. I would prefer to have a right footer playing next to Levi. I still feel uncomfortable having two left-footed centre backs in there. Just for balance reasons, I think.
Sounds like a luxury to me.
But this is harking back to what I was saying. I mean, you had people like Carragher and all that slating, say, oh, players shouldn't be signing for Chelsea because you don't, you're just going for the money. You don't know where you're going to play, blah, 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 because you've got too many players there. But I think what we've tried to do as a club, we've invested a lot, obviously, in young players, but we've tried to get two very, very good players, hungry players, young players in every position. And effectively, we've kind of got three squads. So we have the squad that plays in Europe, where some of our actual key players are not even in those squads. So like the Kyle Palmer and a few others. So they don't even play in that squad. They can come back into it later on in the group stage and after this initial stage. But yeah, we have that kind of depth. I mean, Nico Jackson, obviously, at the moment for me, is probably one of the best strikers in the league. Still misses a lot of chances, but for what he gives the team in terms of his presence, his pressing from the front, etc., which going into obviously today's game will be crucial. Getting the ball off of you early, I believe, is key in retaining that possession. But yeah, we have that depth, and then João Felix we've got players that can really hurt from the bench. In Nkunku, João Felix. So we have real good options in that. I mean, Dewsbury Hall can't even get in any match day. That's a player we signed, for 30 odd million. He can't even get anywhere near any kind of minutes on the pitch at the moment in any of our teams. So yeah, the billion dollar bottle jobs, as Gary Neville called us. That other pundits were slating us, but I don't think any club in the Premier League top half is laughing now. In terms of what we've done, we've invested, we've invested in a squad that could potentially do well for the next 5 to 10 years. And I've been very critical of our ownership. A bit headless chicken, just kind of like some sort of rich man in a stripper club, just kind of oh look, let's have some of that. That one looks nice on the pole. Yeah, throw some money at that. So it's kind of been a bit almost. It appeared from the outside it was kind of like scattergun signing, but now looking at the way Enzo forms his squad, the way he has them training, the way he makes everything competitive. We've seen it this week where Noni Madueke has a great game against Southampton, goal, assist, etc. Blah blah blah. One of the players of the match, and then he comes out and he says, "I love Noni, but he needs to do more."
What do you think of the manager? Because I
really like him. I was unsure and I was a little underwhelmed with it. I from a tactical perspective, I always thought he was very, very good, but being able then to, it's not just about tactics as a coach when you're dealing with a club and a squad of that size, it's how you manage that. Yeah. And that's where he's really impressed me. In game, he's been fantastic, but where he's really impressed me is the way he's managed everything, the way he talks to the press, the way he manages the players, always challenging the players to be more, do better. You're great, you're brilliant, I love you, but you're not playing next week because you had a shit day in training. So, and I love that. And there's elements of Mourinho in that, because I remember when Jose came to the club, and then Joe Cole was flying, and he had a man of the match performance, and then straight after the game, Jose's like, yeah, you think he was great, but I thought he was rubbish today because he didn't do this for the team, blah blah blah, and he hammered him, and it was like a rocket up Joe Cole's ass. It was like, and he went to levels well beyond what he was even playing at then, and I see elements of that in Maresca and the way he challenges players in the squad. We've seen it with Mudryk, and Mudryk took a lot of stick. We spent a lot of money on him, 89 million, and the form wasn't great. Misses a lot of chances. Like, the end product wasn't there. So he takes him out of that, takes him out of the pressure of week in, week out playing in the Premier League, and that plays him in the odd cup game here and there, but then gives him the Europa League to develop. And he's arguably been one of our best players in the Europa League squad this season. Scored some unbelievable goals, and he feel that we're actually starting to see the player that we potentially signed. So I think having the large squad enables you to then have patience and time with players, and gives you the ability to work with players on the training ground and develop partnerships and understandings all over the pitch. And for me, that's the most impressive thing about what he's brought to the club. I think he's brought a calmness. Everyone now sees the Maresca way, and we saw it at Leicester, but that was in the Championship, and it's difficult to ascertain whether that works in the Premier League. But given the fact that he's got an unbelievable amount of backing in terms of players that he can sign, players that he thinks that will make a difference to the squad, and the fruit is there. We've seen the form we've been on. I'm not getting carried away. I'd be very, very happy if we pick up the Europa League and finish in the top four. I think for this squad this season, that's progress. But yeah, we're 6 points off.
You do very well if you pick up the Europa League. Bearing in mind you're in the Conference League.
That's it. Yeah, I always confuse the two. Yeah, that one. Yeah,
that's the only dig I'm going to be able to get in.
well, to be fair, right? I mean, we've won all the other competitions, so we haven't. That's the one we haven't won. So, let's pick it up. Let's put it in the trophy cabinet. But yeah, I'm very happy as a fan. I've got no complaints. With how we're playing, the actual football is really good. We still can be a bit shaky at the back, but week on week we're getting better at that. And yet again, I believe that comes with forming partnerships. We have a test today that we've got one of our key players out in Fofana. So, but then that's a challenge. That means, okay, there's a spot up for grabs. And if you can come in and play well and nail that, you've got potential of maybe playing the next 6 or 7 games. So I like that. I like that aspect of it. I like the competitiveness of the squad. And the fact that even though we've signed all these players, we're still looking at players in January who could potentially come in and then aid and help the squad and push it even further. So yeah, I'm a happy fan. And if we win today, we could potentially be 4 points off Liverpool at the top. So ask any Chelsea fan, realistic Chelsea fan, at the start of the season, and every single one of them would have bit your arm off to be where we are now. So yeah, nothing more to add.
So does that mean it's dreaded prediction time?
I believe it is. Yeah, I believe it is, and then we'll come back in a few couple of weeks or so, and then we'll put this game and whatever fixtures have come after that, and we'll see where we are. I always think, it's have a bit of realism for both clubs. Ignore the fact that where you're sitting 11th in the table at the moment and where we are, and even taking today's game out of it, it's still early in the season. It's not even, it's barely 1/3 of the season. So I think people probably get a bit carried away, about where they are. I'm not getting too far ahead of myself in terms of where we are now compared to where we could be. Look at that in March, at the end of February, once you've had the League Cup final, etc., and and the Premier League fixtures, you're coming into that final third of the Premier League fixtures. Well, let's really see where teams are then. But yeah, as today goes, I'll get your prediction first.
Another 5-1.
Yeah,
another 5-1 maybe.
Maybe, you never know. I do think we'll win today.
I'm 3. I'm going to go with 3-1 because
I'm not
we're
entirely
at home, so we have to score.
Yeah, I'm not entirely like mega confident, because I think sometimes when you're on that crest of the wave, it's very easy to get knocked down, especially in a game like today. However, I do think we will win. I think it'll be fairly tight, but I think we might nick it 2-1.
I think it'll be. I don't think it'll be tight at all, to be honest.
You
Because
don't?
everything like what you've just said, like if it's tight after 60 minutes, say, you've got a bench that can come on and change it, whereas Spurs haven't. So
No, I get that. I just think, given everything, because of the pressure and because of they're young players, I do think there'll be moments today where there'll be little drops in confidence. And we've seen it in games against, I mean, even the Southampton, as good as the Southampton result was, there was moments in there where with young players, and you get that because you get inconsistencies, you get mistakes. There was elements of nervousness that creep in. And with all due respect to Southampton, the forward line they're going to be facing today, particularly defensively, is another level up. You know, coming up against, it doesn't really matter who you play, whether Sonny starts through the middle if Solanke ain't quite there, or whether it's Solanke big and physical could cause some problems for us. Kulusevski, when he drifts in and gets into the pockets, I would think, if purely from taking my Chelsea head off, and if I was looking at the Chelsea team, me personally, I'd probably play Kulusevski in 10. And maybe drop Maddison a little bit deeper, not play a 6-6 pivot, because I think players like Maddison and Kulusevski moving around. I think if you put Kulusevski on the right today and you put him up against Cucurella, I don't think he gets anything out of the game at all for you today. But I think in a 10, directly in between our centre, dropping off the striker or running in behind, and linking the play maybe in behind two centre halves and a different partnership to take. I think that's where you may hurt us. But yeah, I don't know. It's difficult.
Well, we'll see. But if he plays Maddison, so then it would be Maddison, Basuma, and Kulusevski. I think we'll get destroyed in midfield.
You could get overrun with legs, and potentially with counters and that. And then it just comes down to whether or not we can actually take the chances, I suppose. But and obviously, it is a bit of a blow. I mean, as well as Forster's done, it is a blow not having your first choice keeper in. Yeah. But I say it's not a bad keeper. Age may not be on his side, but he is a good goalkeeper. So we'll see how it goes. So that's that then. Yeah. So you get to go to bed. Are you going to get up? Are you getting up and watching it?
Yeah, so I'll go to bed. It'll be kickoff is 5:30 in the morning my time. So I'll get up, watch the game, and then go straight to work on a Monday morning.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go back to bed for a couple of hours now, and then I'm going to hit the gym, get a bit of a gym session in, and then come back, have some food, settle down before the game. Obviously, it's 4:30 the game here, so I've got a fair few hours to go before the game. So yeah, I did actually tempt myself with I might actually go up to Stamford Bridge and watch it locally in one of the pubs near the ground. Probably, if I did, it'd be the Chelsea Pensioner, just for the atmosphere. Because I think sometimes watching it at home, it's nice because you can concentrate on the game, but I haven't been to a game in such a long time, so I kind of crave that sort of almost match atmosphere.
Yeah.
And I think today, given the magnitude of the fixture and what it is and what it means to us individually as supporters of this fixture, I think it could be nice to go and watch it surrounded by fellow Chelsea fans. Yeah, right. So there we go. So that's that preview. The preview of the game done. I believe we've answered all the questions Ad has put to us. So thank you, Adam, for that. Much appreciated. And to anyone who watches this back, if you want to get involved with the show, you have a point of view, you want to discuss anything about your club, please do get in contact. You can see the social links, that will be in the description as well, but you can see the social links ticking across the bottom of the screen throughout the podcast. So get in contact and give us your points of view. And like I say, if you want to be a guest on the show, please do so. So from me, your host, Hodgie, thank you very much. And for Paul, all the way over in New Zealand, thank you very much for joining us, mate.
Anytime.
Yeah, it's been a while. So it's brilliant to have you back on. And yeah, good luck. Best of luck. May the best team win.
And I hope that's Tottenham.
I'll let you have that in at the end there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode.